Dr. Jessica Barr. Dr. Jessica Barr, also known as the Data Queen, began her career in education as a teacher, where her passion for statistics and improving educational outcomes quickly became very evident. She pursued her master's degree, earning her administrative credentials. Motivated to deepen her expertise, Dr. Barr also earned a doctorate degree. Over the past 7 years, she has established her own company, which now supports over 400 schools across 14 states by providing cutting-edge data analysis, predictive analytics, and strategies for improving student outcomes. Dr. Barr is a professor at Doral College and serves as a guest lecturer at the University of Southern California. Welcome, Dr. Barr.
I like that intro. You can go on the road with me. Okay. Whose idea was it to put me after Adalia with her QR codes? That was wonderful. Thank you. So I'm so excited to be here with you all today. It's still like 8 a.m. in Las Vegas, so don't avoid the bags under my eyes. As we go through, we can actually go to my first slide, if you don't mind, up in the control room there. Maybe. Hello. There we go. Thank you. All right. So I want to start out by getting to know you a little bit. My name, again, is Dr. Hair Flip. I worked really hard for that doctor. I will flip my hair every time I say it. Jessica Barr. Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I want to get to know my audience a little bit. Please raise your hand if you are a current teacher. A current teacher. Oh, that's my people. Wonderful. A current administrator, instructional coach. Fantastic. Wonderful. Any future teachers in here? And a handful of future teachers. God bless. Thank you for joining us. Wonderful. So I'm going to start out my presentation by triggering everyone a little. We're going to trigger you a little bit. I want you to go back in your head to 2020. I know. 2020 are the year that will go down in history. Raise your hand if you were a teacher or educator during our pandemic. All right, and you're all still here. You didn't go become real estate agents. Thank you so much. Appreciate you staying. So when we talk about 2020, I look back, imagine yourself back then, right? Wearing your mask, teaching, hopefully students learning, fingers crossed, through a computer, learning how to make sourdough bread, watching all of those Netflix shows that you wanted to watch that you never had time for, 20 cases of toilet paper stashed in your garage, right? Everybody's back, right? You remember, right? Okay, I know we've all tried to black it out. So it was a rough year. That whole time, our students on Zoom, right? And those of us who were educators before that, all we kept saying is we just want them to get back into school, right? We just need to be back in the classroom. We appreciated that at a whole nother level. We know they can learn, we know they can grow if we just get them back in front of us, right? So then 21, 22, they start coming back. We're like, this is what we've been waiting for. I'm going to be the best version of myself I ever wanted to be. They get back to school, and what did we all start saying immediately? We just want them to go back home. Like, what happened? Why are they so antsy and rude? What are the things that are happening right now, right? And so those first couple years back, right? Because if you can believe it, this March is 5 years. That was 5 years ago, right? I know, time flies. So they all came back. And we wanted them to go home for a minute, but then we're like, okay, we're going to stick it out, right? And we're sitting there and we're like, we just wanted to get back to normal, right? I kept hearing that from so many people. Wanted to get back to normal. I wanted to get back to normal. It took about 2 years back in before I think we all go, well, I guess this is it. This is the new normal. This is it, right? There are obstacles. that we are facing in this new normal, right? There are obstacles. So my goal today, we're going to be detectives together. We got to case close this, right? We got to declassify some information. We're going to close the case, and we're going to thrive in our new normal. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go back to basics. I think it's one of those things where a lot of us came back over these past few years hopeful that we could just get right back into what I would say is the equivalent of marathon training, right? Marathon training, high-level strategies, high-level standards, high-level students, right? But now I'm realizing we're forgetting to pause, and the data is showing this in certain areas after we sort of got that initial surge in data from going back into classrooms. We're seeing some more stagnancy, especially in math, than we've ever seen before, right? And the key to this is remembering that we can't really work on marathon training until we all make sure we remember how to tie our shoes really well, right? And so my job as a data analyst, right, is to diagnose. I diagnose. I'm a diagnostic doctor, right? I walk into a school, maybe some of your schools, I walk in and I diagnose. I pull up the data, I try to make it fun and visually appealing, but I come in and I say, this looks healthy, this needs work. In some states, not ever Florida schools, this is how long you have left to live. Some of you know which states I'm talking about. But we do that process together. And then you guys all rush to prescribe, right? As teachers, as administrators, as educators, you are the prescribers. But we didn't really get into or aren't spending as much time going back and looking at what are the root causes for the breakdown, right? What are the root causes? Who are the suspects, right, that are infiltrating our classrooms and our data? So if we can go to our next slide, please. So we're detectives, so we're going to start out with a little bit of reflection, and you can just self-reflect on these questions. What has changed in education over the past 5 years? Why do some classrooms thrive while others struggle? What basics did we leave behind in our rush to recover, right? And again, we're in sort of this space where it's been fill the gaps, fill the gaps, fill the gaps, right? Like the Beauty and the Beast song, kill the beast, right? We've been filling gaps. But now we have to also balance that. Well, what do we do after we do that, right? How do we get back to rigor and some of these other things? We'll go to our next slide, please. So the new normal context, I want to give us some context for that. The new normal in education is characterized by a shift away from emergency response teaching. We got to shift away from emergency response teaching and toward long-term instructional sustainability. While the pandemic necessitated rapid adaptations in our schools, in our classrooms, our focus now has to be returning to rigor. High expectations, right? Adalia said that in hers, right? A lot of your things. I was like, people are going to think we planned together when we didn't. High expectations and fundamental instructional practices that drive student success. Rigor is a fun word, right? Rigor is a really fun word. We say that a lot. I say that a lot when I do data chats. We need more rigor. This looks like there's not enough rigor. More rigor, please, right? I had a really brave teacher at a campus that is pretty well known for rigor. I won't say where it was, but it rhymed with schmoral. And they asked a really brave question. And they said, you know, what is rigor though, right? Like I can Google rigor and get a definition. But my definition of rigor in mathematics is going to be different than hers in social studies, than his in general ed math versus intensive math, right? What is rigor? So part of the call to action is making sure that we all decide what that definition is within our own buildings, because it is a fluid and flexible definition. But you have to define that for yourselves. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like, right? And it sounds so simple, but it's so crucial. Next slide, please. So before we can talk about our suspects and some different things, we have to acknowledge our challenges, right? And I don't like the word excuses because I think that implies negative intentions, right? Explanations, right? We have explanations for why things are the way they are. And there were explanations long before a worldwide pandemic, right? A global pandemic. We had explanations for, why student test scores on the fall on their first test of the year were lower than the spring. Oh, well, summer slide, right? Or why when we test right before winter break, the data isn't what we want, right? Oh, well, they're so tired. They're burnt out. They've been eating too much sugar for the holidays, right? Then we have another explanation for after testing, right? Oh, well, they can't test in January because then, they forget everything over that 2-week break, right? So we have been equipped with explanations, not excuses, explanations for a very long time. But as a data analyst, I've found that the most power is not to shut those things down, but to just put them out there. Like, what are these explanations? What are the reasons that we are struggling to achieve what we want to achieve with our students, again, in this new normal? So we'll go to our first challenge. We'll go to our next slide. Thank you. Number 1, the broken teacher pipeline. Thank you, Doral College, for helping us fix that one. Appreciate it. But the broken teacher pipeline, accountability, high expectations. There's a fear of this now. And as a new teacher or as a current teacher, right, you should know this. We should know that there is this level of fear or fragility of losing you, almost to the point that we're scared to coach you. And we just need to talk about it, right? Some group therapy. So I hear things a lot like, man, this teacher, if they just amped up that rigor, or if we just gave them some strategies to move those bubble kids, right? That data would fly high. Well, I'm too scared to push my teacher. I don't want to lose them, right? I think you're all pretty tough. Do you think you're pretty tough? I think you're tough, right? They're not sure. They're tough. I have no one else. It's almost impossible to find a licensed, certified teacher in this area right now. Amen, right? We're going to go to Data Church today, my friends. Many of my teachers are long-term substitutes. They don't have the pedagogy for me to push them that way, right? I come from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm about to be closer to you, though. I'm moving to Tennessee. Get excited. Yeah, that's my girl right there. We got to talk later. I know you live there now. I have to start saying things like y'all, so I'm going to start working that into my presentation here. But I come from Nevada. And in Nevada, we have the 5th largest school district in the country, Clark County School District. More than 40% of teachers in classrooms in that school district right now are substitutes. There is such an urgent issue right now in terms of the teacher pipeline being broken, that states are starting to do some scary things. Arizona just passed a law where you can be a fully certified teacher with only a high school diploma. Yeah. The scare, the pandemic, they're all like, wait, I don't have to go. No, you got to stay here. You got to stay here. They don't pay you as well out there. Calm down. But, right, it is a thing. And everybody is feeling the teacher pipeline issue, and we are, in fact, feeling it in all 50 states. This is a thing. But Florida, I do want to let you know that there's, I love me some data. There's data that proves that it's a bigger thing in Florida, the teacher pipeline issue, than in all 50 states in the nation. Florida has the number 1 vacancy count in the country right now. You see your piece here, right, where it says above 3,000, but they didn't say specifically. In the fall, it was released that Florida has 10,000 teacher and staff vacancies. 10,000 educator vacancies right now. So the struggle is real. So again, this isn't an excuse or we're not looking at the glass half empty, but we've got to really know what we're facing right now. And so my big piece, knowing who my audience was today, of acknowledging this, is to say thank you, right? Woohoo. Thank you for choosing kids in a time where so many are leaving them and scared to come and join our team, right? You're doing something very important. And I'm going to walk through some things today that I want you to avoid as teachers, but know that it's coming from a place of helping you serve those children that you've agreed to serve in a time where fewer are helping them than ever, right? So it's a call to action, but knowing that you are the hero to their stories. Right now, when there are so few, historically fewer than ever, that are willing to do that, right? So it's very powerful. Next slide, please. Challenge number 2, abandonment of essentials. Again, we were all in on filling gaps, right? But there's an overemphasis on intervention right now. Intervention is important. It is crucial, but it cannot be at the expense of essential foundational practices, right? Your tier 1 instruction that you provide is sacred. It is sacred, sacred time. So we have to keep that sacred. But we've abandoned some of the things that used to be like teaching 101. I'm going to be honest though, when I went through my bachelor's degree, wasn't through Doral College, Judy, it wasn't through Doral College. It was through UNLV. When I went through my bachelor's degree, I didn't really get sort of my bullet points of essentials as a teacher, right? I learned how to write a 15-page lesson plan, which really helps me now. I learned how to engage students through Kagan and all of these things at a high level. But I didn't really get hey, these are just some simple things that really everyone should do. And so today my goal was to make sure that we talked about those things. I want to give you the answer to the test, right? We all love a good hack, so I'm going to give you some of the answers to the test. A few examples of things that we've seen that have been abandoned that are in schools, again, that are very high performing across the country, that we sort of know it, and then we talk about it, and I'm like, but you're still doing this thing that we did 10 years ago that was so important, right? And I get a lot of, wait, are we doing that? But you're checking it. No, you're checking it, right? And we've kind of lost it. So let's just a few examples. Fluency tracking in the primary grades, right? This is where all my administrators down here nod their heads. You're going to get we're going to need neck braces. You're going to get whiplashes from all the nodding. Fluency tracking in primary grades, such a huge piece, right? Crazy fact. We are seeing still, our current 5th graders are the last ones to go home, right? They were the last ones to go home. After those kids cycled through testing grades, there was like this, whew, it's over. And I was like, you guys are so cute. You're so cute if you think it's over. We have been having a crisis since 2020 in K2. And it is for a perfect storm of reasons. A perfect storm of reasons. But one of those essential reasons is that we started kind of, again, abandoning things that are so crucial and research-based. Fluency is one of those things, right? If I don't learn to decode in kindergarten and become a fluent reader moving into 1st and 2nd grade, my whole life path changes, right? If I leave 3rd grade, right? You guys are so excited, I'm sure, that last year Florida gave 3rd grade. Any 3rd grade teachers in here? Woot woot. Oh, yeah, I see you. So last year they gave you your own bucket in the school grade. They're like, yeah, we know. They give you your own bucket, right? Most states have 3rd grade reading as their own bucket on their state report cards, and that's for a reason. Because did you know that a child who leaves 3rd grade not reading at grade level, the moment they leave your classroom, no pressure, my love, the moment they leave your classroom and they say, bye, have a great summer, right? If they aren't reading at grade level, meaning that they can at least pass your state test at a level 3, their chances of graduating high school drop 50%, right? Their chances of graduating high school drop 50%. We have less kids going to preschool across this country since 2020 than ever. Parents are keeping their kids home. If you have a preschool in your school, thank goodness, that's wonderful. But less kids are going to preschool than ever. Now we're seeing another emergence, right, of issues with that. Because less kids are going to preschool than ever, there was a study released in 2023 that showed that we are seeing more students not get exposed to germs prior to going to kindergarten. So now they are coming into kindergarten, getting immersed into our whole class environments and getting sick all the time and missing more school. Kinder through 12th grade across the country, right? Absenteeism is a thing. I love talking about absenteeism. It's so important. You can't learn if you're not there, right? Absenteeism across this country is the highest it's ever been. Florida, it's not in your school grade like it is in many of our other states, right? In Nevada, it's 10% of our grade, so most of us are Bs because it's really hard to get that. But kinder and first graders, in kinder through 12th grade, you would think the highest absenteeism rates are with the kids who drive themselves to school, right? False. Kinder and first graders have the highest absenteeism rates over the last 5 years in this country. And let me tell you, I have any kinder or first grade teachers in here? Oh, fantastic. God bless you all. You should all be sainted. We'll give you an official parade at the end of my presentation. But it's a thing. Have you ever been in a kinder classroom, right? Where they're like, hey, wearing pants is important, let alone like teaching a child how to read, right? It's very crucial. Pants, please put your pants on. So overall though, kinder and first graders are missing more time in school than ever, right? They're definitely not getting their fluency and learning to decode if they're not there. But if a child in kinder or first grade misses 18 days of school, just 18 days, if I miss 18 days with just one of you in kinder or first grade, my chances of leaving third grade, reading at grade level, now drop to 17%. 18 absences in kinder or first grade, which sounds like a lot. It's only 2 days a month. That's only 2 days a month. If I miss 2 days a month, even as a mother, I heard that statistic and I was like, uh-oh, did I do that? No, I didn't. Thank goodness. They were like a little closer than they should have been. But I have 5 kids. So it was a thing. But, right, they only have a 17% chance of leaving third grade reading on or above grade level. And we know what happens if I don't leave third grade reading at grade level. So do you kind of see that we've got this thing happening since 2020? It is not just it was over and done, and this is part of the new normal. So we have to talk about these things. Master schedules reflecting priorities, right? Your minutes tell me everything I need to know as a data analyst. When I walk through the building, the first thing I ask for is a master schedule. What's important to you, I can tell by the minutes that you've prioritized within this child's day, right? So master scheduling, going back to making sure our minutes reflect our priorities as educators. Teachers, if you have autonomy within your 90-minute math block or within your 120-minute reading block, right? Make sure that you are scheduling intentional minutes and time for kids to receive intervention so that you don't fall into the trap of sacrificing grade level content to do it during your lesson, right? So make sure your minutes reflect that as well. Classroom observation schedules. If you're an administrator, right, go back to we got to schedule it to make sure that we're seeing it. Don't just walk in for 5 minutes, see some cool engagement strategies, which are important, Adalia, they're very important. But don't just walk in for 5 minutes, right? Sit through a whole lesson and see what you see from first minute to last minute, right? Such a crucial piece. Lesson planning, common boards, pacing check-ins, right? These are all essential actions for educators. Next slide, please. Challenge number 3, educator fragility. I know, this is one of those things that I'm like, am I allowed to talk about it? I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I gotta talk about it because it's a thing, right? Fragility. Did you know that our job is really stressful? It's so stressful. Do we all have the eye twitches and some bald spots to prove it? I think we do. So it's for sure a thing. Fatigue from rapid change. There's been so much change, especially in Florida, right? We had 2 years back, and your wonderful governor was like, that seems a little too easy now. I'm going to change all your standards. I'm going to change your test. You're going to take it 3 times a year now, right? So stress be a thing, right? And I don't know if you know this about yourselves out here in Florida, but you're overachievers. Did you know that? Did you know that you're overachievers? So it's a thing. Stress is a thing. But according to very recent surveys, a significant portion of teachers experience mental health issues related to fatigue and burnout. Statistics show that in this study, which was a very large sample size, 44% of teachers report feeling very often burned out at work, right? And it's not to scare you away from it, but let's talk about why, right? Let's just talk about why it is so that we can grasp control of that, right? We can't ignore these things. That's almost half of our educators, right? And you as current and future teachers, you should know that it is something that can lead to burnout, which is why that balance is so important, right? It is important. But the why behind it, I was a teacher, still the hardest job I ever had. For sure. There's no tired like teacher tired. You know, that first meet the teacher at the end of the week and you're like army crawling to the bar. I mean car. Keep this PG. You know I'm from Vegas. You're from Miami. We all know what I'm talking about. It's all good. It's all good. But let's be honest, educators, most of our job we don't do in our school hours, right? And my husband is a chef, which is why I wear all these black, stretchy, slimming outfits. But he's a chef, and we used to argue about this quite a bit. He's like, I run 18 restaurants, and I know how to turn it off when I come home, and you don't, and da-da-da-da-da, right? Those of you who know my husband know that he's kind of scary when he's mad, too, so it was a thing. But overall, I was constantly explaining to him, like, I teach 7 hours, right? I go to the bathroom twice if I'm lucky, right? I teach all day. I have to do lesson planning, grading, answering emails, right? Talking to angry parents, encouraging students. I do all of that outside of my workday, right? So no wonder we feel burned out. Right? And the key is balance. But what I would love to call upon all of us to do is remember that the balance cannot be within sacrificing essential instructional practices. We can find the balance in other ways, right? In other ways other than saying, I don't have time to put that extra step into planning my instruction. Right? There's a way to find the balance. And of the people who know that, your instructors, we are all educators, right? Your administrators, they've been in your shoes. It's okay to talk about it. I think a lot of us think it's weak to say we need help. It's not, right? And we have to talk about how to make that balance happen. Next slide for me, please. All right, not all doom and gloom. Data analysts tend to do that. We are going to turn our challenges into opportunities, right? We're going to turn them into opportunities. So returning to rigor and high expectations, reclaiming instructional basics, building sustainable, balanced habits for long-term success. And that's what I want to talk to you today. I want to talk to you about bad habits and good habits. I want to give you the answers to the test so that you can leave here today, whether you're an administrator supporting your teachers or as a teacher yourself or as a future teacher. Hopefully you leave here today feeling like you're not just trying to solve this mystery on your own every day in your classrooms, that you're able to leave with some tangible next steps. What are the things that will harm data and ultimately how to help data? And when I talk about data and I talk about high student outcomes and I talk about being an A school, I'm talking about serving children well, right? Not just putting a really sexy A on your car loop banner, which we all love to do, right? But really serving children well. And an A school in Florida means that you're not just serving some children well, it means you're serving all children well, right? And that's what we signed up to do in a time where less people are signing up for this task and calling than ever. Next slide, please. All right, so it's time to crack the case. Our mission to identify essential instructional and leadership practices for thriving schools. So we're gonna get back to the basics. Next slide again. All right, so we're going to investigate our evidence. I'm calling it crimes against the classroom. So we're going to point our attention to the real suspects disrupting our instruction, not teachers, behaviors. Hopefully you all got a little evidence envelope. Hold it up for me so I can see. Fantastic. My Instagram handle's on there. Feel free to follow. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to look through this. So you can open your evidence envelope if you haven't already. You can take this back. This is also something that's publicly available if you want the access to that. I'll share that after at the end. But I want to talk through, again, this is the answers to the test, right? If you ever want to make sure that you are doing right by kids, these are the keys. So as cute as it is, I hope you think it's cute, it was 6 months of research and data backing that went into that little infographic. That's a lot of work to take 6 months of research and data verification, right? Turning that into something that is hopefully fun, digestible, and usable for anybody, right? So as you go through this, what are we looking at? My research in those 6 months showed something very clear, that there are really ultimately, when we see stagnant or declining data, it's due to interruptions into instruction, right? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 instruction. And those disruptions, right, there are ultimately 12 behaviors that we can have as educators that lead to stagnant or declining data. And those behaviors, I want you to remember, are behaviors, not people, right? So all my teachers, right? Very important that you hear me. When you're looking through this, all my administrators, the goal is not to look at each of our suspects as an individual person, right? You're not to look at this and whisper to the person next to you, oh, well, Miss Smith is suspect number 5, right? That is not the goal of this resource. Again, these are not people. These are behaviors that are proven to disrupt instruction. And if we are disrupting instruction, we are disrupting our data, right? So it's the answers to the test. These suspects, these perpetrators, make an appearance in every single educator's classroom across the country, no matter how long or short a time they've been teaching. My last and best years teaching, right, and I had the data to prove they were really good years, but my last and best years teaching, I had at least 2 of these suspects living in my classroom, right, paying flippin' rent, right? They were paying rent in my classroom. The point is not that you should have none of them in your classroom. It's to have an awareness of them and jail them up when you can, right? And the more of them that might enter into your classrooms, the more you're going to see data that you might dig so much, right? So again, let's talk through the answers to the test. Let's go ahead and put our suspects in a lineup and investigate, shall we? Are we ready? Yeah? All right. Is your coffee wearing off? You guys are good, right? We're good. All right, let's go. Woo, woo. All right, next slide, please. Suspect number 1, the standard swindler. If this suspect were charged with something, what would it be? Abandoning alignment. After interrogation, if this suspect, again, suspect, not individual, suspect, if this behavior were guilty of something, it would be misleading students with off-target content. Line of questioning. Line of questioning could be something you ask yourself as an educator. If you're an administrator, it could be something you ask a teacher after you do an observation, right? As a grade level lead or chair or instructional coach, it could be something when you're sitting around and doing lesson planning checks together, right? That you are looking through that and you're saying, did we just see this in your lesson plan, right? So the line of questioning are meant to be tool of reflection. So for the standard swindler, what would my line of questioning be? Number 1, is instruction truly aligned with grade level standards, or has this sneaky suspect gone off course? Let me give you an example of this. We all know when we are in front of a class who is struggling, right? It's the class, if you're a middle-high teachers, raise your hand. Wonderful. It's the class period you look forward to the least, right? It's usually where behaviors are concentrated because they struggle, they act out, right? But Adalia gave you some tips to avoid that today, so I hope you heard them. But we all know when we have a class or a class period of students that struggle. The standard swindler, no one ever commits these behaviors intentionally, right? But the standard swindler, a great example of that would be if I'm standing in front of a class that's struggling and I'm teaching, let's say, fractions. 3rd grade teachers, I'm back to you. Hi, guys. But I'm teaching fractions. Everybody knows fractions. 4th, 5th, everybody. Whenever we get to fractions, we brace for impact, right? Well, When I was a teacher, every year I would plan my fractions lesson, right? I'd spend day, night, weekend. I didn't go to my bottomless mimosa brunch Sunday, which was, and I was like, I'm going to plan fractions. And I would go plan fractions, and I would be like, this is the year. This is the lesson plan, not binge watching my Netflix show, not going to that brunch, right? It was worth it, because this is the year everyone's going to get fractions. They're already laughing, my third grade teachers. And then about 5 minutes into the lesson, I'd start giving it, and I'd gone into the hook, I was ready, and I'd see their faces all start to scrunch and their heads tilt. And I would say, well, ain't nobody learning fractions today. Another miss, right? Another miss. And I'd feel this pull that most educators do feel across this country when kids don't understand something, or too many kids in front of us don't understand, to stop, slow down, go back, and teach lower, right? That is the most common misstep an educator can make. There is a time and place for going back. That's intervention, right? That's an intervention component, a differentiation part of your lesson. But if you sacrifice your grade level content, if you stop teaching fractions, right, because they don't understand parts of a whole, right? And you start teaching parts of a whole, kinder first grade stuff, right? You're no longer a third grade teacher, you're a first grade teacher, right? And so how can we make sure that we are not abandoning our standards during the time when kids have to see them? So that would be the standard swindler. Next slide, please. Suspect number 2, I love this one, the curriculum counterfeiter. She's very popular in Nevada, very, very popular in Nevada, because in Nevada, curriculum is not the law. So it's an interesting comparison. In Arizona either, so again, don't go there. So, curriculum counterfeiter, what would this suspect be charged with? Unauthorized resource substitution. What would this suspect, see, I almost did it. This suspect be guilty of? Teachers pay teachers and Pinterest up on her desktop all day. Cutting content, not using research-based resources. What would my line of questioning be? Is the approved curriculum being used with integrity? Not fidelity. I don't like the word fidelity. Fidelity, that's the new F word to teachers. Integrity. What am I using when no one's looking? Right? What am I using when no one's looking? When we're talking about curriculum substitution, this is a really important thing to be aware of. There is a difference between finding something on the internet that helps you extend and enrich a lesson, right? Extend and enrich. I'm about to address a very complex text in my research-based curriculum. And my goodness, my kids last year struggled with it, and my class this year is even lower than those kids were last year, right? So I need to find something that helps them digest it and me teach it at a higher level. So maybe you go on the internet and you find a really cool graphic organizer, right? You find something that helps you stop, pause, break down, visually helps your kids map out their thinking. That's just good teaching. That's just good teaching. You get a pass there, right? What I'm talking about is instead of finding something to support you in teaching something that's research-based, you replace it with something easier. Going online, right, and finding a cool graphic organizer is different than going online and then saying, you know what, that passage is going to be too hard for my kids. And that goes back to, again, Adalia's presentation. They can, right, or they can't. You've already decided before you tried that they can't do it. So instead of giving them the complex text, we go to whatever website, teacherswhatever.com, and we download a text that little Susie Joe from Milwaukee, Wisconsin slapped a standard on and said is at grade level, right? There's a difference. My favorite, our suspect here, the rigorous rogue. Charged with lowering the bar, which I find highly offensive. The name of my company is Raising the Bar. So lowering the bar. What would this suspect be found guilty of? Avoiding grade level rigor, depriving students of challenging, meaningful learning opportunities. My question here, are lessons meeting grade level rigor, or is this culprit lowering the bar to avoid challenges? This suspect likes to sneak in the smallest ways. The smallest ways. One example would be the one at a time call on, right? I'm going to ask a hard question, and I'm going to let one kid in the class answer that question, right? I urge everybody in this room to make sure that you are doing checks for understanding constantly of all your kids, not just the 5 who are brave enough to raise their hand, and not just the handful of kids that were unlucky enough for you to pull their name out of a popsicle stick jar, right? Making sure that you are calling on all kids at some level. Turn and talk to each other, right? Adalia gave you a great example of that in her presentation. Turn, talk to each other. Give everyone a chance to engage in the learning. But the rigorous rogue is an easy suspect to let sneak into your classroom. Another example is opting out, right? Another example would be when you let your students, when you give them the answers. That happens a lot during observations. It's funny, I'm gonna tell you all a secret, teachers. Are you ready for the secret? We don't want to see the kids get the right answer all the time. That's not what we want when we walk into your rooms. We want to see what you do when they don't have it. When they don't have the right answer at the tip of their tongue, your administrator wants to see how you handle that. That's what they're looking for. That's the answer to the test. Do you allow them some productive struggle? Do you support them in answering it? Do you pause and let everybody turn and talk to each other to try and support each other in finding the answer? Or do you feed them the answer or call in another child, right? So making sure that we don't, again, push into those things that are comfortable. The uncomfortable is usually where the best learning occurs. Next slide, please. Suspect number 4, the lesson plan illusionist. Charge, obscuring objectives. Guilty of creating lesson plans without clear goals or criteria, leaving students and teachers directionless. My line of questioning would be, are lesson plans being thoughtfully completed? Do lesson plans provide clear objectives and success criteria, or are they full of smoke and mirrors? This was definitely a suspect that lived in my classroom towards the end. I wrote my lesson plans, but I'd already been teaching my content for at least 3 years in a row, so I copy-pasted them. Right? I copy-pasted them. Now, is that a bad thing? No. But could I have gone in and, knowing that the work was already done, added a higher level question? Could I have gone in and known that that fractions lesson misfired and tried to reshift it a little bit? Absolutely, right? And I'm going to let you all know what I think about our friend, our best friend, Mr. ChatGPT, employee of the month. He's employee of the year at my company for sure. But employee of the month, ChatGPT. I think it's okay. You can't plug something in to AI without giving it very explicit directions, right? If you just said, write a lesson plan for my Algebra 2 class and just left it at that, it might be a little messy. Use the cuts, use the things to help you, but use them smart, right? Provide explicit directions to that tool. Read through it meticulously. Envision yourself giving the lesson after you provide it. I think if anyone in here tried to make a rule of no ChatGPT for lesson plans, we would all be lying to ourselves that that's not exactly what's happening. What's the other one? Magic School, right? God, I would have killed for that. I would have killed for that when I was a teacher. Use it, but use it smart, right? Use it to help you do the harder stuff with the planning, not to erase it from your repertoire, right? I'm going to give you my favorite quote. It was said by a really smart person. Her name is Dr. Jessica Barr. But she says, I always say, right, you have to do some level of planning, right? Meaningful instruction will never occur unless you are planning for it to happen. Meaningful instruction will never occur unless you are planning for it to happen. We don't go to the Super Bowl without doing a scrimmage first, right? We don't put on a big production without doing a dress rehearsal, right? We absolutely cannot get up in front of our kids, deliver a lesson while reading from a teacher's edition manual or not at all and just winging it, right? And expect for learning to occur. You have to have done everything within your power to plan, run through that scenario for it to happen. Next suspect, please. The engagement escapist. And it was so funny. I did this for a school the other day, and one of my principal goes, yeah, well, if you look like that, I wouldn't be engaged either. I didn't do that on purpose. Engagement escapist, charged with stealing student attention, not in the right way, guilty of failing to maintain student interest, right? Are students actively participating, or has this suspect stolen their attention and energy? Again, not in the good way, right? I don't have to talk through this a lot because you just had an hour presentation on it, right? So we're good. Yeah, thumbs up. Right? Engagement escapist. When we talk about rigor, and I've been asked, you told us, Dr. Barr, to go to our schools and say, what does rigor look like, feel like, sound like, right? I'll tell you the number one thing rigor looks like for me. It's walking into a classroom and it's kids working harder than you, right? So who along the way said that a quiet classroom was a learned classroom? Right? That's gross. It's like Charlie Brown, right? The teacher up at the front of the room, I'm aging myself, wah, 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 right? It's that same sort of thing, right? And again, Adalia just really went deep into that. You only have our attention for 7 minutes, right? 7 minutes. So it's all about instruct, release, instruct, release, instruct, release. A noisy classroom is a learned classroom if they are on task. Right? And my aha moment with this, and I don't do this just for brownie points, it's true. I think talking about those moments in our careers that shaped us as educators are important. But my aha moment for this was walking in and meeting Judy for the first time at Matter Middle High, right? And I walked into a 12th grade classroom, seniors, and it looked like an elementary classroom. There were anchor charts and word walls and hands-on visuals and projects. Kids were not seated in rows. I can always tell what type of teacher you are depending on your desk formations. Sometimes there's not enough space. That's not a judgment. But I walked in and they were all sitting in groups and it was loud. It was loud. And I was like, ooh, what's happening in here? But then I walked up and I listened to a group and they were debating each other on the content objective. Right? They were debating. Well, I think this because of that, pulling text evidence to support their position, right? And I was like, wow, you can learn loud, right? You can learn loud, and how powerful. But it's being an engaging teacher to know how that's done, right? All right, can I get a little amen there? Amen. All right. Suspect number 6, next slide, please. FBI most wanted. Number 1 data killer, the management menace, overall charged, classroom chaos creation, guilty of poor classroom management leading to distractions and a loss of instructional efficacy. Line of questioning, is classroom management solid and supportive? You can manage your classroom in a loving way, right? Or is this troublemaker allowing excessive disruptions? This is the part of the presentation where I pause and remind you that none of these suspects walk into your room usually independently. They all have accomplices. And your management menace he's got the biggest gang of them all. Because I'll tell you what, if we are struggling with managing the children in front of us, right? Then we are also letting in his friends, the engagement escapist, the standard swindler, the rigorous rogue, the pacing phantom. These suspects like to travel in packs. And if you have this one in your room, you have about half of them in your room, right? Which is why it's always the number 1 suspect you want to try in jail, right? So management is such a key piece. So we're about halfway through our suspects. I'd like for you to take a moment, right? And I want you to turn to someone near you. And I want you to share of our first 6 suspects. And again, you've got your evidence envelope in front of you. I want you to share with someone near you, next to you, who is one suspect that you feel you have successfully jailed. Maybe occasionally you let them out on parole, but they're jailed, right? One suspect you feel that you've successfully jailed, either in your school as a principal or as an administrator, as a teacher in a classroom. Who's a suspect you feel like you've jailed? And one other thing, who's brave enough to share a suspect that's still on the run? Who's one that's still on the run, right? So go ahead and turn and talk to each other. Let's do this for 3 minutes. Who's your jailed?
Not the pranks, the entire thing. I'm not one mistake.
I love that.
Sending out 100% to everybody I know. Tagging you on Instagram.
I'm going to give you one more minute. Make sure your partner gets a chance to share too. What's that? 10 minutes. Oh. No, that's good. I know. Finish up your final thoughts. I will know when everyone has had a chance to finish sharing because your eyes will be on me. Your voices will be off. Can you tell I was a teacher? Yeah. Fantastic. I love it when teachers do exactly what we ask our students to do. Great job. You pat yourselves on the back for that. Can I get a share? Can I get a share? I would love it. Go ahead.
All right, so I think one that's locked up for sure is the data dodger, because if you don't have data, you can't drive a school. There's no school without the data, and I think that puts everything in perspective and build on that foundation to proliferate your school as you know it. Now, some of my counterparts would say that the management sometimes you want to be lax, but there's a certain group you can't be lax with, so they're trying to find that medium and how to be lax with the group as a whole, and just enter in some of those, I would say, effective mechanisms.
Fantastic. Love that. And I love that your first one that you've gelled is the data dodger. A for you. We'll make A plus, all the good grades. Fantastic. Anyone else want to share a suspect? Yeah. I love that. Management menace, planning an escape. Love it. Right? So trying to go on parole, but we're not going to let it happen, right? Routine, consistency, structures, and change up that routine a little bit sometimes, right? Sometimes they get used to the routine and you got to be like, we're going to change it up, right? But I love that. And I really appreciate when you're able to know that, again, we all have some of those suspects, right? Bernie was joking. He just left, Dr. Montero. But he was like, pretty sure that I was the whole crime scene at one point. The whole thing, the whole crime scene. I was like, yeah, we all were, right? Oh, fantastic. So for the sake of time, but if you want to meet me up after, during lunch and tell me more about your suspects that you've jailed and that are still on the run, I'd love to hear about it. And I think we kind of touched into already that sometimes it can be a little bit of both, right? Things change day by day. So someone you thought you jailed might make a reappearance, right? Was that who I just saw, right? But it's all about making sure that you now again have the awareness of it, right? You have the awareness so you can lock them up when you look at it. Suspect number 7, we'll go to our next slide. We're just going to coast through the rest of these pretty quickly. The assessment amnesiac, charged, neglecting evidence collection, guilty of replacing assessments, leaving themselves without the data to guide instruction. Line of questioning, are formative and summative assessments being used to gather learning evidence, or have we forgotten their purpose? This is one that I will be the first to say was really paying rent in my classroom, even my last and best few years of teaching. Are we using assessments to fill a grade book? Are we using it to check a box? Or are we using it for their two intended purposes? To see if a child is ready to learn something that I'm about to teach them, or to see if they did after I did, right? After I taught it to them. So always shifting back. Am I using my assessments, again, and how many assessments am I giving, right? Am I using them with intentionality or to check a box and fill a grade book? All right, suspect number 8, next slide, please. The differentiation dodger, charged with failure to support all learners, guilty of ignoring individual needs, allowing some students to fall through the cracks. Line of questioning, are all students supported through targeted scaffolds, or has this suspect left some out in the cold? If you work with me as your data analyst, we break down data by certain type of learner. Everybody's always got one that they're really good at, a superpower, right? Maybe you're really great with your higher level kids, which is hard to do. Everyone's always got a kryptonite, right? Maybe those bubble babies come back and bite you, right? Or those sweet and lows, as I like to call them, the strugglers, right? I stole that from a kinder teacher. But making sure that all levels of learners are being supported and that you carry that mentality that, again, we're just going to keep reinforcing that they can and they should. Suspect number 9, next one, please. The data dodger, this one again I find personally offensive. Charged with ignoring evidence, guilty of failing to use student performance data to adapt and improve instruction. Is data driving instruction to meet student needs, or has this suspect been ignoring the clues? And I don't just mean 3 times a year, my friends. Right? Are we using data on a daily basis, right? Daily, weekly basis. Are we looking at their iReady minutes, right? Are we making sure that we are checking our test scores to see who might need a spiral review or a reteach, right? There are many versions of data that you can use throughout your day. Next slide, suspect number 10. The pacing phantom, right up there with the management menace, FBI most wanted, charged with instructional time theft, guilty of rushing through or stalling on standards, robbing students of essential learning opportunities. My line of questioning here, is pacing appropriate to cover all standards, or is this ghostly figure rushing and stalling out? I'm going to tell you the biggest secret there is. Are you ready? We're all ready for the secret? Okay. They can't learn it if they don't see it. They can't learn it if they don't see it. And they most certainly aren't going to pass it if they don't see it. And they're not going to grow in it if they don't see it. Do not fall into the trap of teaching the wrong grade level. If you are a 7th grade teacher, you are not teaching 6th grade content in a tier 1 environment. If you are a 6th grade teacher, you cannot teach 5th grade, and so on and so forth. Education is a relay race, and ideally everybody ran fast and hard before they passed you that baton. But realistically, someone tripped, stumbled, and fell. Do not feel like you have to go back and pick that baton up. You just have to run twice as fast towards your goal, right? As Lily would say, accelerate, 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 right? Suspect number 11. The clarity culprit, charged with confusing communication, guilty of delivering unclear instructions and explanations, leaving students unsure of what they are expected to learn and do. Our line of questioning, are the learning objectives and success criteria clearly communicated to students so that they know what they are working towards? That's why common boards are a thing, right? You should know every day right there on your board or on your TV screen, because now y'all be fancy with your digital Common boards. That's a thing. But when you're posting it, right, that objective is not just for an administrator walking into your room. It's for you. It's a constant reminder of what your goal for that lesson is, of your goal for that day. It's a reminder to your students of what they should be engaging in to learn. What is their objective? Are instructions and explanations broken down into manageable, student-friendly steps, or are they over-complex and vague? Our last suspect and last slide here, the culture saboteur. Again, probably the most dangerous suspect there is. What are we charged with? Undermining a learning environment, guilty of failing to create a positive, inclusive, and respectful environment of students. My line of questioning, does the classroom environment encourage risk-taking and active participation of all of my children, or are students hesitant to engage due to a fear of failure or negative feedback? This goes right back to, again, my bestie over there, Adalia, who presented right before me. You have to believe they can. And that is the number one kiss of death in data. I can't tell you how frequently I hear it when we are looking student by student, and the moment we see a child who's not growing, we assign it to the child as their fault. Well, they can't because they have an IEP. They're an English learner. They don't care. They don't try. Their parents don't care, right? Those are all obstacles potentially, right? They're all obstacles. But your job as their teacher in this most important role that you've signed on for is to believe that they can and they should, and if they're not, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it as their teacher? We'll go to the next slide, please. We already did that a little. We'll switch to the next one. See, I'm a teacher. I pivoted my lesson plan when I saw it was taking a long time. I do want us to get into a culture of looking for learning. I want us to get back into checking for habits, right? What do those daily habit checks look like? How can we call each other out in a loving, funny, hopefully way of, are we letting suspects infiltrate our classroom? Right? How can I call myself out and reflect in those pieces and get back to sustainability and balance? We'll go to the next slide, please. So we got to build the habit, which is all about thriving with leadership and balance. So a phase one of something I'd like for you to start thinking about going back into your buildings. Guided weekly look-fors. Right? Don't just look for the bad. Don't just look for the suspects. Don't just look for the perpetrators, but look for the good. Look for what we've jailed, right? Wow, I just walked into your classroom and see that you were using your curriculum with the utmost integrity. That's amazing. How are you doing that? I just saw you using this amazing management strategy, right? How can we share that with the team? So start looking for the good, right? The suspects jailed, not just the suspects on the loose. Finally, it will eventually transition into unprompted greatness, where if we constantly talk about these suspects and how to jail them and support each other in jailing them, we are going to see it just become a natural part of our day, right? How many days was it for a habit? 29, you said? 29? Right? 21, right? Right? And then 70 for a lifestyle. Love it. 90, sorry. Thank you. I know. How embarrassing for the data analyst to quote the data wrong. It's fine. It's fine. All right, we'll do tutoring at lunch. Okay, next slide, please. So I think we closed the case. I hope you enjoyed investigating the suspects with me today. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to end you with a quote, which are that the clues to thriving aren't hidden. It's not a secret. It's not classified material, right? We just declassified all of those suspects today. They're in plain sight. They're all in plain sight, and they're all within your control. All it takes is a keen eye, a clear goal, and the determination to solve the case. I want to thank you again. We started talking about the teacher pipeline being broken. I believe, no matter what numbers say at some random point in the school year, that if you chose teaching, you are meant to be a teacher, right? We don't choose teaching for the fame or the glory or the pay. We choose teaching because we feel the need to give back. that we feel the need to be someone for kids that maybe we had in our lives when we were growing up. Maybe we want to be someone's Judy Marty, right? We fill that gap for kids, right? And we feel that calling. I hope you had fun today with this, but I want to end with just that final piece, which is that everything in your classrooms is within your control. If it feels like it's not, all you have to do is turn to someone nearby and ask for help. Ask them how they did it. Go watch somebody do it better than you, right? And when you take all of that and you learn that the best teachers are the best students, right? Then everything is unstoppable. No suspects in your classroom. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.